Today on Cool Tools, I'm going to show you a spray stabilizer that you can use to tame curled edges on knits or frayed edges on woven fabric. In fact, this little spray can make your woven fabrics feel like paper and be fray-free. This can come in handy if you're working on a machine applique project where you have lots of little pieces to cut out and you want to protect the edges before you start putting them in place and covering those edges with decorative stitches. Or if you're a garment sewer and you love to work with knits, this spray is amazing for taming those pesky little curled edges that some knits have. What is this liquid fabric spray called? Terial Magic. It's like material without the ma. And I think it's a miracle in a bottle. I'm going to show you two ways to use it today because I like to get the biggest bang for my buck when I'm working with something. So anything that I'm sharing with you, I really try to give you more than one way to use it if it's at all possible. And in this case, I'm going to show you two things. So in front of me here, you can see I have a little pile of scraps. This fabric is a cotton quilting fabric. Let's pretend I'm going to be doing a fussy cutting project where I'm actually going to cut all of these little leaves out of the print on this fabric, and then I'm going to applique them onto another background. In order to protect all those little edges, what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a paper-like feel to this fabric, and it's going to have edges that will not fray. Now, the way you work with it for this situation is you want to put it in a bowl, or I have it in a dinner plate because it's just a small amount. I'm working with the 16-ounce bottle of Terial Magic, and if you read the label, it says this bottle will treat up to 3 yards of fabric. So if you've got a lot of fabric and you want to create a paper-like feel to some yardage, you would put your fabric in a sink or a larger bowl, because the first step is you're going to spray it until it's completely saturated with the Terial Magic. So I'm going to go ahead and spray this. And this is a brand new bottle, so I have to get it going here. So you can see I'm just spraying it. Okay, and you want to make sure you completely cover the entire fabric, and that's why you want to work in a bowl, because you can scrunch it up and you can get it in there and make sure it's completely saturated. If you're working with a large piece, you might want to let it sit for 10 minutes to make sure the liquid is absorbed into the entire piece of fabric. Once you've got that done, you're going to let it hang for about 10 minutes. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this fabric, I'm going to turn my plate upside down, and I'm just going to let it sit on here for a little bit. We'll pretend that that's hanging somewhere, and I'm going to show you the second way to use it, and then we'll come back to that in a minute. Now, this might be a very common sight for you if you are a knit sewer. And I have this rib knit, and you can see I can't get this to lay flat to save my life. If I take my iron and I try to press it, I can get it better, like I can press out some of the curl, but notice it pops right back. Okay, so this knit would be a nightmare to sew because it'd be very hard to get an accurate seam allowance, because I wouldn't be able to line these fabrics up, double layer, keep them nice and flat, and sew a accurate seam allowance. And if you're familiar with sewing with knits, usually knit garments have a 1/4 or a 3/8 inch seam allowance, so that makes it additionally harder to get that accurate seam allowance if you're also fighting with curl. So what I'm going to do here is, in this case, I'm not going to work in the bowl. I'm literally just going to spritz the edge of my curled fabric like this, and then I'm going to just iron it flat. Now, you want to make sure you are ironing it when it's wet. If it dries, spritz it with some water so you can activate it and get the full advantage of the stabilizing effect. So again, I'm just going to hold my iron down. I'm not going to rub too much back and forth because we're working with a knit and I don't want to stretch it. So it's more of a more of a patting situation here. And you can see that just with that little amount of spritzing, and I didn't even cover the entire curled edge, I just spritzed it mostly. You know, I got it so it was mostly covered. I'm not trying to create that papery feel that I'm working with on the woven fabric. But you can see, let's give it a minute. All right, look at how nice this is now. I have nice curl-free edges, and I can sew my accurate seam allowances, and then I can throw my garment in the wash, and all of this stiffness that was created from spritzing it with the Terial Magic will be washed out. Now that I've pressed that, there isn't any more curl, and it's super easy to sew. So that's my favorite way to use the Terial Magic. Now let's bring back my piece that I completely saturated, and notice how drapey it is, right? It's a drapey cotton woven fabric. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to take my iron and I'm going to just start pat drying it. I think you can hear a little sizzle. This might be, I probably should have let it hang for a few more minutes so it starts to dry. But basically, I'm just going to press this flat. All right, so that's mostly dry now. All right, so look at how nice and stiff that is now. Isn't that amazing? Look how much body it has. I can hold it by a corner and it doesn't fold up on itself. So now I have this very stable fabric that I can work with, and I can do my little fussy cutting. I can work with it, cut all my edges, and not worry about them fraying. So this is a very cool application for Terial Magic as well. You might notice there's a little bit of extra product on the surface of the fabric, and it basically just flecks off. So if you have like a little brush or you use your nail, you can just, rub it off if you notice it's there. But again, if you're going to be laundering this when you're done with your project, you don't have to worry about that because it completely washes out. So that is my cool tool for the week, Terial Magic. I did put a link to this in the description below if you want to check that out. I want to mention one other thing here. I was ironing directly on my Aliso multi-mat on my big mat from the Big Mat Rotary Cutting Surface Company. I was experimenting with it because in the instructions to use these multi-mats, it says not to put it on a heat protected surface. So what I've come to realize is if I want to iron on my cutting mat that does not like heat, I stack two of them on top of each other, and that seems to be enough to keep my mat from getting damaged for quick things. If I were going to do longer ironing, I probably would put something more protective under it so I don't warp my cutting mat. So you're watching me do this. I don't want anyone to think you can put a single multi-mat on your cutting board, iron on it, and not damage your cutting mat. So I just wanted to point that out. But I am loving these Aliso New Zealand wool multi-mat pressing surfaces as well. They are so cool to work with. All right, so just for fun, I am going to take my scissors and let's see what kind of edge we get if we cut. So let's say I wanted to cut this flower. And you can see, I almost think having the Terial Magic spray applied to this also makes it easier to fussy cut things. That's one of my favorite sewing terms, fussy cut. But you can see here, it really makes it easy to work with. And I'm gonna cut out this one flower just to show you. But you can see I'm getting a nice smooth cut here. Having it stabilized really makes it easier to work with. So this is something I would use for machine applique, because when I do my machine applique, I'm less likely to want to use a double-sided fusible web to hold the fabric against, hold the applique fabric against the background. So this can make a nice, stable fabric that will be appliqued on. without too much fuss and muss here. But again, I'm just showing you how easy this is to work with these fabrics. You know what I'm thinking? I'm thinking this would be very cool to use this in conjunction with making gift note cards, because you can just pop this on the paper now and stitch it onto your note card. There's so many fun things you can do with these shapes after you cut them out. But I just wanted to show you that having the Terial Magic on there really makes it easier to work with. So look at how cool this is with almost no fuss and muss. All right, so look at how cool that is. I just cut out that shape. Look at how nice and stable it is. The edges are protected by the Terial Magic that I sprayed on and then ironed dry. And this little applique is ready to go. And also, let me bring my knit back here. You can see my knit is also still ready to go. It still is not curling. And if you remember from the beginning of this video, it was almost like a window shade opening and shutting. It was so curly. So still nice and flat. I have this lovely applique that I can use. This is bugging me. I'm going to cut this one off here. I don't like this little appendage. Let me scale that down. There. I like that better. So if you do a lot of work with knits that curl, or if you do a lot of work with woven fabrics that you'd like to protect the edges, make it feel paper-like, and not have any fraying to worry about, check out the Terial Magic. It's a really cool thing to have in your toolbox when you need it. So thank you guys so much for joining me for that. Tomorrow on Fit Tip Tuesday, I'm going to show you how to do a curved bust start to help fit a larger bust. And I'm going to explain the difference between a straight leg dart and then a curved leg dart. So join me for that tomorrow. One other super important announcement. On Friday, I'm having Sarami from So Live, and she's going to talk about her Fitopia fitting series she's working on her channel. And it's going to be at a special time, 4 o'clock Eastern Standard Time, because she's busy doing something during our normal time. And of course, we have the time zone issue where she's in California and I'm in Connecticut. So we're going to have FabFit Friday at 4 o'clock Eastern Standard Time this week, and you're going to get to hang out with me and Sarami. It's going to be a lot of fun. So look forward to that, and thank you so much for watching, and have a wonderful rest of your day. I hope you're having a wonderful day. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you again very, very soon.